Who the hell does he think he is? Breaking all the rules. Why, this guy's so far out of the box, he could be an alien. Oh, that's scary. Is he an alien? Is he a real wizard?
Yeah.
Of course he is, and this is the Harvey Wizard Show. So put your hands together for the 65-year-old badass himself, Harvey Wizard!
Thank you so much. I really appreciate, oh my God, what a welcome that was. You know, I don't like to drink my beer out of a can, but when it comes to applause, I'll take canned or any other kind. Hey, welcome to the Harvey Wizard Show. I am Harvey Wizard. Am I a real wizard? Look at me. I am 65 years old. How else would you explain it? Of course, I'm a real wizard, and this is a podcast like no other. We're going for 9 acts. That's about 5 minutes an act. This is purposely a podcast built for those with short attention spans, like all of us. And here we are. We're going to entertain, because if I don't keep you entertained, you won't stick around long enough to get educated and inspired. That's right. And let's get started with Act 1, Inspirational Story. This is going to be an inspirational story. And just to make sure you're listening carefully, there will be one detail, just one detail of this story that I'm going to change that isn't true. See if you can find it. So listen carefully. This is a story of how a guy like me, 25 years old, 5'3", which is kind of a disability in the US. They've done studies. But anyway, I hadn't gone out on a date in 3 years. I had horrible self-confidence, just horrible. But I was confident in my skills in advertising. I was working in an ad agency at the time. And I said, what if I could sell myself the way I sell these products? And this is back in 1984, when there wasn't the internet. There weren't even 900 numbers. It was very old-fashioned, rudimentary. How do you connect with somebody if you were like me and didn't have the nerve to just walk up to women in the street? But they had these things called date phones, which were sort of consolidated advertising for the unlucky in love, you could say. And so you would listen to essentially a string of either bachelors or bachelorettes. Each was trying to sell you on why they were such a good catch, right? And if you liked them, you'd send them a letter, wrap $1 around it for the service, and then you could have a date. So I spent the $30 to advertise on the service. But before I did, I treated it like any other product. I did my competitive analysis by making sure I listened to what all the other guys were saying. What were they saying? So I could stick out and do something better and different. Listen to the other guys, though, I realized everybody sounds so kind of depressed and desperate. And it's kind of cliche. You're just listing, I'm a this, I'm a that. I like walking on the beach and I want to walk on the beach with someone. I mean, that kind of stuff, but nothing that was authentic, nothing that would really make you feel that you had a sense of who this person was. Or more important, and here's the inspirational, educational part. When you're doing a personal ad, the most important thing is sound like you're going to be a good time. Because at this point, nobody knows if you're going to get married. It's just, but let's do it step by step. Oh, I think I'd have fun on a date with this person. If you accomplish that, you're stepping to the top of the line right away, because most people don't think that way. They're so focused on this is who I want to marry that they forget you first have to have fun on the first date. So listening to all of that and using a strength I had, because I'm 5'3", but I do have a pretty decent voice, that I created this funny ad, which in retrospect is corny, but it worked. And here is the ad. This is Bachelor number 232. Are you looking for someone down to earth, but somewhat European, highly sophisticated and intellectual, a real cutie pie with sex appeal? If you are, and if you are funny, bright and spunky. Does anyone use that word anymore? Spunky? Then write to me, bachelor number 232. And by the end of that week, I had a mailbox crammed full of about 100 responses. I mean, what happened was that for whatever reason, in 1984, that ad worked. And I started attracting women of much higher caliber, creative directors and investment bankers, and many women who even said, we would listen, a couple of my girlfriends and I, to this date phone thing at night just to make fun of all of these hatless jerks, right? And then suddenly, hey, this guy sounds like fun. So before I knew it, I was going on 9 dates a week, very structured, very systematized, like I try to do most things. 7 date, one for every weekend night, and two for Saturday, two for Sunday, compressing the process because I just super networked. And within, I guess, a couple weeks, I went on a date with a woman. It went okay. It wasn't really a love connection, but that she said, I think you and my friend Donna would get along so well together. So I called Donna, and don't you know, 3 weeks later, we were married. Mm-hmm. Was it smart? I don't know, but I did accomplish the goal and it lasted for 28 years. So there you have it. But the interesting thing is that we got married so quickly. And here's the fun part of the story. Donna had promised her friend that she would go with her to a singles dance to be her wing woman. And that singles, but they planned that singles dance maybe a couple months before, and we got married in the interim. And the friend wouldn't let Donna out of it. And then I get roped into going to the singles dance too. Pretty uncomfortable. Donna's off being the wing woman with her friend, and I'm stuck there with the wallflower guys. What do I do now? Oh, thank God I saw my friend Jay. Well, it wasn't even my friend. It was a acquaintance from Hebrew school. I'm 25 at this point. Maybe I haven't seen him since I was 11, but when we're socially uncomfortable, we'll use anything we can get. And so I said, hey, Jay, how are you? And he said, hey, what's new? And I said, I got married. And he said, so what are you doing at a singles dance? Whereupon I laid out the steps of exactly what I had done to achieve my success and got me through the evening. Didn't think about it again for about 6 years. And then walking down the street and approaching me on the Upper East Side of Manhattan is Jay with a beautiful woman standing next to him, and the two of them are wheeling this baby carriage. And as he approaches me, he says, Harvey, that's so weird. I was just thinking about you. And I said, well, Jay, that's very sweet, but why would you be thinking about me? I mean, the unspoken sentiment there is we were barely acquaintances. And, this was just, we got ourselves through an awkward time at a singles dance 6 years ago. Why are you thinking of me? Well, remember that story you told me, he said. I said, yeah. He goes, I did exactly what you said. And look at my beautiful wife and look at my beautiful baby. And so, yes, often when I look at them, I'm reminded of you and how you were the one who helped me get here. And oh my God, that's part of why I'm doing this show. That's part of why I do a lot of what I do. And when you've had an experience like that, you realize who knows what can happen if I just give some friendly advice here and there. So, Jay was so happy and he actually came and he hugged me. And then he whispered in my ear, you did so well with with the wife and the baby. Can you rustle me up a mistress who keeps her legs open and her mouth shut? And that is the one detail that wasn't true in the story. We always need a punchline, don't we? But no, that didn't happen. It ended up sweet and beautiful. And that has always inspired me to offer advice when I can, because you never know when something you say can make a difference in someone else's life. And now it's time for Apocalypse Now. Unfortunately, if you look around, it kind of is apocalypse now. I mean, between climate change and multiple wars and the political changes both in the US and elsewhere, it's kind of apocalypse now. And I wanted to do something about it. So you can check this out. I am actually and remain a 2024 US presidential candidate, which gives me the freedom of political speech. It lets Google treat anything I do as a political ad for better or for worse. And given that it was so easy to do to become a presidential candidate in about 20 minutes from my desk here in Costa Rica, um, I thought I would do it just to maybe give myself a little gravitas when I talk about things. See, now I can speak directly to Donald Trump somewhat on a similar footing, except that I actually have half a brain. Yes, I am solidly anti-Trump, and I just feel it's important to go on the record to explain how I relate Trumpism to this apocalypse now, to our deteriorating world, and why it will kind of go that way as long as people are believing in lies and all the other things that go along with Trump. I mean, it's simply for me, and this is, how anybody may choose to make their political decisions or other decisions, but it's really about all the decisions I make that I don't want to work with people. I don't want to be governed by people. I don't want to be involved with people who are characterless or have proven themselves to me as being devoid of kindness, completely out for themselves, and not caring who they hurt in the process. And there we've kind of defined Donald Trump. And you have to imagine part of this is the human story, the human toll. Okay. So you're imagining a guy, he's been running a business, he puts in windows and he's making an okay living. He's middle class. And suddenly he gets the job to do all the windows in this casino. So maybe he borrows money, he starts taking on more people. Oh my God, the big payday that's coming, that's coming, that's coming. And guess what happens? When the job is done, Donald Trump comes up with some excuse not to pay the guy. Or maybe he pays him 10 cents on the dollar. Whatever he does, that just pushes that guy into bankruptcy. So, and that's not the, I mean, again, we have that. Um, we have him not caring about the disabled. We have the racism. We have him putting in, Latino children in cages, all of these things. And of course, those who feel wronged are going to eat it up. And this is how the Nazi movement was built in Germany. This is how fascism arises. You key in to people's dissatisfaction with their lives, you give them an easy scapegoat, and you get power for yourself, which is exactly what Donald Trump is doing. And how does this affect us? It makes basically it makes everybody meaner and less kind. You know, yes, I do happen to be Jewish, and I remember it was about 2 to 3 years ago, and this I'm going to call it's my sign of how Trumpism is ruining the world, or just making the world a less fun place, a less kind place, less a place you want to bring up kids in. And I was speaking to a parent, new phone call, never spoken to them before. They're interested in the services that I provide for SAT prep and for college admissions. And very quickly in the conversation, when I was talking about how I could help, the mom said, "Oh, what's the use? What's the use? He's a white kid and the Jews get all the spots." And the fact that someone would just say that to a stranger told me the world had changed. We've entered apocalypse now. So just consider, when you make your political choices, what you're also choosing about the world you want to live in, and whether you're contributing or trying to fight against apocalypse now. Let's move on, because it's Soapbox Time. Well, yowza yowza, I get to be up on my soapbox. Generally, every segment in this show is no more than about 5 minutes, so it won't be for long. And if you listen to me, you just might get some life-changing advice. I'm going to talk about something I know really well today, but it also is a principle that applies to all of our lives, whether you're a student or an adult or whatever you may be. And behind this is my general motto, which is that success is doing what other people can't do, won't do, or are just too chicken shit to do, right? This is what stops all of us from the success we want to create for ourselves, or maybe for our kids. And what drives me crazy is many of you have heard about the SAT, Scholastic Aptitude Test, or the ACT, the two tests that high school kids need to take in order to get into college. And for years, you had to do it, right? And what is the reason? And here's some important information for those who don't already know this. The SAT and the ACT are screening device tests. They're designed to make it easier for admissions officers to get through this huge pile of applications. Imagine the people at Harvard, 40,000 applications. They've got, 1,800 spots, and they'd also like to get home to see their kids at night. How do they do that? Well, we can use this one number from the SAT and say, for Harvard, pretty much everybody who's 1530 or above, we're going to look at seriously. Otherwise, unless you're a recruited athlete or a certain minority, or maybe if your parents have given millions of dollars, you're out of the running just by virtue of the SAT score. So that can quickly knock down the pile significantly, right? Which is why it's a good thing, and why and here's the key, you're supposed to be adults, mom and dad. Oh, they made the SAT optional. Now my kid doesn't have to take it. Right. And you don't have to submit any extracurriculars. Why pick an AP class? It's all optional. Getting into college, maybe it shouldn't be this way, but it's super competitive. In the years when I was applying to school in like 1975, there were 30% were getting into Dartmouth, where I went to school, partly because not everybody was even on a college track. They used to have the vocational track, and those kids were learning how to be, plumbers or electricians or air conditioning specialists, which are not bad jobs for right now. I'll tell you, I'm not all into you've got to go to college, but if you want to go to college, this SAT score is so important. And here's what nobody else is saying and why it's so important, up on my soapbox. There are about 25,000 high schools in the country. And let's take the smartest kids. Let's take the top 5 kids, not top 5%, top 5. Top 5 kids, 25,000 high schools. That's 125,000 kids every year, right? We're graduating. How many kids in a year do you think is a 1530 or better SAT score? That's, like 95% or better. You have to make a few mistakes in there. How many? Most people are surprised to know that's only about 5,000. Now, that's out of a couple million who'll take it. But even if you compare the 5,000 to the 125,000 kids who all thought they're real darn smart, why are they not doing great in the SAT? Because the SAT is set up as a test that's designed to trick students to make it easier to weed them out. And even if you're applying SAT optional, that doesn't mean they're not looking at the score, or that they're not looking at the lack of score as the possibility that your kid wouldn't have had a great score, which in many cases is true. So you see, by telling your kid not to work on the SAT, you're basically giving them permission to be a loser. I'm sorry to say it that bluntly, but that is the truth, right? Now, maybe your kid is better off being a plumber or an electrician. I'm all for that. But I'm saying, if you are putting yourself into this competitive, super competitive college game where, only 5% are getting in, which means 95% of straight A students are getting kicked out. And why? Mostly in the first case, because they didn't put enough time into the SAT. Because, it's so sad when I look at the SAT industry, and again, I'm doing it as a passion project. I'm not trying to make millions of dollars on this. I've been lucky enough to have made my money. This is because I'm trying to do the right thing. Honestly, a lot of it is in honor of my daughter who died tragically 4 years ago. So to really help kids and say, gosh, if you just put in 150 hours, now that's not that much. It's 30 minutes a day for about 9 months. I will get you to a 1530 or better SAT score if you're willing to put in about 30 minutes practice a day, 15 minutes reading a day, because I have a unique system. I'm the only in the world who has any system. And the truth is that John Katzman, the founder of the Prince Review, when we met in person, said to me, and I will never forget his exact words, because who would forget being in an industry leader's office, and I'm just, a guy doing it on my own. And he says to me, well, Harvey, I guess I could say our systems are cousins of one another, but to be honest, I would be your very stupid cousin. And that was coming from the founder of the Prince Review, which is kind of telling you the way everybody else is doing it is wrong. And I'm not doing this to make money. Let me tell you, this is the right way to do it. There is a system that I figured out when I was, in high school in 1975. I'm old, I'm 65, but at the time I figured out there had to be an objective basis for every kind of question. I figured out that you could get the right answer to every reading question just by making sure you matched all the words. And, you can get my free course and see all of it for 7 days. You can see for free. And if you spend money on somebody else's crap course, send me the receipt. I'll give you my $400 course for free and I'll support it, because there is a way to get a 1530 or better SAT if you're willing to put into practice. I have a system, and kind of like a drug that everybody ought to have, I'm going to give it away for free. I'll give it away for free to a whole school and train the school to use it, because I have this 100% success rate. Any student who's followed the system, memorizes the word, does the reading, it's predictable. And I'm on my soapbox because why shouldn't you have this if you have a kid, right? So there's a link right on the show notes. Just go to harveywizard.com. Once you sign up with me, you get all kinds of free stuff. You get, you'll know when my next podcast is coming quickly. And I will give you the secret if you just make your kid practice. Because if you get your 1530 or better SAT score, it pretty much translates into a full ride merit scholarship. Yeah, that's how you get the free college for your kid that I've been promising. Okay? That's the free college for your kid. And now before I get up down on my soapbox, it's all about following a system and putting in the work and practicing every day. So if you have any goal in your life as an adult, you want to make $1 million, you want to make it your own business, you're tired with your love life, whatever it is, I'm going to give you a 30-minute free training. You can just sign up for it right on harveywizard.com. Most people won't do it. So that's why I don't have to worry about offering for free, because you have to be committed to change. You have to want something better for yourself. And if you convince me that you've got what it takes, not only will you get the 30 minutes, 30 days free one-on-one coaching with me. Of course, I work with just a handful of people, but take that, Tony Robbins. He will not be doing that. That is my offer to help whoever it is, if you're willing to put in the work and change your life. This isn't BS. This is just showing you how to do the very things I've already done for myself. And that's the end of Soapbox Time. And now I'm going to introduce my alter ego, Papi Azucar. And I hope you enjoy his rendition of the End of the Innocence. Ticklin The Ivories.
Lawyers dwell on small details since Daddy had to fly. But I know a place where we can go that's still untouched by man. We'll sit and watch the clouds roll by and the tall grass wave in the wind. You can lay your head back on the ground. Let your hair fall all around me. Offer up your best defense. This is the end. This is the end of the innocence. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, but now those skies are threatened plowshares into swords for this tired old man we elected king. Armchair warriors often fail, and we've been poisoned by these fairy tales. The lawyers clean up all the tales since the dead had to lie. But I know a place where we can go that's still untouched by man. Sit and watch the clouds roll by and the tall grass wave in the wind. You can lay your head back on the ground, let your hair spill all around me. Offer up your best defense. This is the end. This is the end of the innocence. Who knows how long this will last, or how we come so far so fast. But somewhere back there in the dust, let's say small town in each of us, I need to remember this. So baby, give me just one kiss and let me take a long last look before we say goodbye. Just lay your head back on the ground, let your hair fall all around me. Offer up your best defense. This is the end. This is the end of the innocence. The end of the innocence. The end of the innocence.
Scumbag Spotlight. This may be my favorite segment of the show, Scumbag Spotlight, where I get hopefully to bring to justice someone who's been hiding under people being too afraid to tell the truth out of fear of getting sued. You know how it works in this country, that even if you know some really bad stuff about someone who's ripping off the public, if you're the one who goes out and says that person's a liar, that person's a cheater, you have to worry about being sued for defamation. And even if you're telling the truth, who has the money and the time to go through a lawsuit over defamation? Anyway, I find myself in this situation, again, through a couple of tragedies. After my daughter's death, I didn't want my wife, who's much younger than me, to have to go through hassles when I pass, so I put everything in her name. I own absolutely nothing. Now, that requires a great deal of trust of your spouse, but I've thought this out, carefully. So the point is, all I really have in the world is the right to live in my house to the rest of my life, and the benefit of it is there's nothing to sue. I'm kind of like Rudy Giuliani that way, and because I live in Costa Rica, I'm really hard to serve as well, and that's when why I can come right in and tell you that John Katzman, the founder of the Princeton Review, is a liar who steals children's futures. And now I'm going to tell you how I know that, and and to prove everything that I say. So my story begins in 2011. It was Christmas time, and I was in a Barnes and Nobles getting a book gift wrapped. And the Barnes and Nobles had very smartly got PTA moms to man the gift wrapping table. So they didn't have to pay them. They promised the PTA all the tips from the tip jar, and I was there, and clearly the women at that table were frazzled, had been there for hours for about $3 in the tip jar, and I felt bad for them. So I proposed very quickly, while I was getting my book gift wrapped, that I might give, as I had been doing regularly at that point, one of my free presentations at their school, teaching all of the students in the school my secrets for a perfect SAT score, my SAT 54, my SAT codebreaker 54, rather, as I call it. 54 rules, follow the rules, practice, guaranteed a 1530 or better SAT. And I was offering it to the woman behind the desk at the Barnes and Nobles, the PTA mom, as an alternative where you can make more money with less stress and I'll do the work for you. And I quickly get one of those New York City glances because nobody trusts anything in New York and nobody gives anything away just to be nice in New York. And she gives me one of those looks. And at that very moment, I get a tap on my shoulder. The woman in back of me in line asks, "Wait a minute, are you Harvey the college wizard?" Which was astonishing because I didn't have a podcast. I wasn't written up as much as I am years ago in 2011. So I'm thinking, how would you know that? And she said, "Well, I work for John Katzman, the founder of the Prince Review, and we've seen your ads for that unlimited tutoring for package price, and he can't understand how you can do it and stay in business. That's the truth. He can't understand." So I said, "Well, maybe I can meet him." And I wrote him this email. He agreed to meet. And in the course of that meeting, I told him how I could guarantee the score that he couldn't because I had a system and he didn't. I said, and he goes, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, let's start here. There's a one sentence rule, which basically means if you match every word of the correct answer to any reading question, and this is the SAT, the ACT, the PSAT, the LSAT, it's a very mathematically based infallible system. In fact, I'll give anybody who uses this rule and doesn't get a right answer in a real SAT question $100,000. That's how sure I am. So anyway, I told the rule to John Katzman, and he said he didn't believe it. It couldn't be that simple, he said. And so we sat there going through the College Board book. This is in 2011. They had the big blue book of all the tests, reading question after reading question after reading question. And after about an hour, John Katzman looked up at me and said, "Well, Harvey, I guess I could say our systems are cousins of one another, but to be honest, I would be your very stupid cousin. And I'd like to make an army of Harveys to change the way SAT tutoring is done in the country." And I turned him down for a number of reasons, but the point is I turned him down, but he said what he said. And it was probably the best compliment I've ever gotten, right? It's like walking into the Ford Motor Company CEO's office with the little engine you've been putzing around with in your garage, and they're like, "This is better than anything we've got to sell," right? So, of course, it was something I would never forget. And then about a year and a half ago, I put the story, as I'm telling it now, up on YouTube. And 9 months after that, I get a cease and desist letter from John Katzman's attorney claiming that it's all a lie, that everything I'm saying is a lie. And I know it's not a lie. And I basically set him up because he thought I was living in New York. I set up his attorney and to get to a point where I could sort of make them almost admit that they were lying, and I sent this horrible letter to John Katzman's attorney who had told me up and down, I really shouldn't be talking to you without your attorney. Well, guess what happened at the end of this? John Katzman sends me an email where he says, basically, what did I ever do to you? And my lawyer didn't do anything to you. And all I'm saying is that when somebody worth that much money sends you a cease and desist letter with the threat of a lawsuit, most people will just take the darn thing down and leave everybody in the dark. Because the worst part, and here's the scumbag part, John Katzman knows very well that the way I teach is the right way. And I have made overtures over the years, which I have proof of on LinkedIn, to say, let's do something good for the American students. You say you want to bridge, you want to combat inequality. Let's give this thing away to everybody. And if you all support it, it'll go much better. And by the way, I am doing that. If you have a school, if you're a principal, if you get your principal, I'll give millions of dollars of my course away. I'll support it because this is the right way to do it. And John Katzman knows it. And all I'm pretty sure is that he must have signed a codicil of some kind when he sold the Prince Review. It's a standard practice where he's in trouble if he badmouths the former company. So I really think that's what he's afraid of, that when I reveal what he said and people know it, then maybe people will stop spending money on the Prince Review, because the truth is the system sucks. It's not even a system. It doesn't get you anywhere. And John Katzman himself is charging $1,000 an hour for the system that he knows is Harvey's stupid cousin. And that's why John Katzman is a liar who's stealing children's futures. And John Katzman, you are featured in the crosshairs of Scumbag Spotlight. And now it's time for Are You Ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for some really dark comedy from a Jewish white boy? Yeah, my Jewish lawyer makes me say that so you can't sue me later for emotional distress. Not even if I make jokes about your fat, ugly mother. And if you're looking distressed right now, you might have a fat, ugly mother. Well, I am a Jewish white boy, and I like my comedy extra dark, like my beer, chocolate, and pussy. Yeah, my comedy has turned as dark as a shit stain on a white cashmere rug in Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. Oh, that's ridiculous and impossible because Jeffrey Dahmer was allergic to cashmere. Oh, I know everything. I know everything about him. In fact, I've got a lot of qualities that would make me an excellent serial killer. I'm just not going to tell you what they are. I don't want to scare you, but you really don't have to worry. I could never be a Jeffrey Dahmer. It's genetically impossible because I'm Jewish and I could never get that good with power tools. Now, if you don't laugh at my jokes right now, I promise you're gonna feel fucking guilty because I am disabled. This is no joke. I am a double disabled comedian, born with not one, but two incurable genetic conditions. You see how my fingers just tense up all weird like this, looking like a palsy or something? Ugh. Well, that's not one of my disabilities. That's just me acting in very bad taste. No, my first incurable genetic condition is the fact that I was born without a fuck. And that makes it physically impossible for me to ever give a fuck. And second, how many of you have seen me in person, but there's no doubt I was born short as fuck. Yeah, short as fuck is a medical term, which I prefer to vertically challenged. 160 centimeters is all God gave me. God, you cheap motherfucker. Bitch. In case God's a woman. 160 centimeters, that's all right. Carry the two. 5'3", you're welcome, you metrically challenged Americans. 160 centimeters, 5'3", either way, it isn't bad if you're an 11-year-old girl. Does anybody see that Joaquin Phoenix movie, Napoleon? I know it didn't get very good reviews. It's probably see it everywhere, but I loved it because I love Napoleon. I've always especially enjoyed his complex. See how I threw in a little history test there? And if you didn't laugh, you kind of failed. So some people just never learned that Napoleon was very short, and to compensate, he tried to conquer the world rather than just purchasing a nice pair of elevator shoes like I do. I do have the Napoleon complex, which psychologists call short man syndrome. But I like Napoleon complex better because it sounds a little less fucking humiliating. That's why. See, I'm just like Napoleon, except instead of nations, I conquer hearts. I take huge risks, just like Napoleon, which is why I've been court ordered to attend Gamblers Anonymous meetings. Gamblers Anonymous. What a bunch of losers. They're betting on poker and football over there. Not me. No, I'm not happy gambling unless the odds are completely stacked against me. That's why I've been married 4 fucking times. That's true. After the second divorce, my mother gave me the cutest nickname, Damaged Goods. After the third divorce, I started thinking, maybe it's me. Nah. And to make matters worse, 5'3" doesn't matter where you are in the world. 5'3" is just not short enough for a handicap sticker, which is discrimination, preventing me from milking my disability for all it's worth. Oh no, I've never seen a disabled person do anything like that. Never. But my question is, how can you even put a price on access to handicapped parking spaces at the mall, especially during the holidays? Way I see it, handicapped parking spaces are my fucking birthright, all right? I mean, why should my little legs have to put in twice as much work as everybody else's, especially during the holidays? But they're not going to give me a handicap sticker because I'm just not fucking short enough. Then they tell me I'm not tall enough to ride the big boy roller coaster. Jesus Christ. At least my penis is fucking enormous. Was that sentence blasphemy? My penis fucking enormous. Jesus Christ. Well, let me just tell you, finish things off here, that I got the greatest compliment in my life, really the greatest compliment, in a museum in Florence, Italy. I'll never forget. It was very romantic. Best compliment of my life. I was there with crazy ex-wife number 3, and she took a look at this ancient Roman statue, very primitive, tiny little statue, with its dick sticking out twice as long as the statue was tall. And crazy ex-wife number 3 pointed to that statue and then pointed to me and said, "It's you, my love." As I said, best compliment of my life. That's all for now. I'm Papi Azucar. A different voice. And here we are. It's a different voice, not just me now, as you can see. This is my relatively new but good friend, Gingerbread Amy. And yes, have you legally changed your name to Gingerbread yet?
Well, not legally. I'm going through enough legal stuff right now, but I am sort of, I'm not insisting, but I'm delighted when people realize that it is my preferred name, Gingerbread Amy. And if you call me Gingerbread for short, that's great too.
And how did you come to this? Did somebody sneak some LSD into gingerbread once for you, and that's why you have the lifetime attraction?
No.
No? Tell us the real story then. It's time for a different voice.
Well, my mother was born on Christmas Day, so gingerbread's in my DNA. So that's how it got slipped in.
Wow. There's some connection to Jesus there, I know, which we won't be talking about right now because this is an atheist podcast. But
come on.
Oh, you can throw a little Jesus in, but but anyway, part of the serendipity in this in Gingerbread Amy and I coming together, and really Gingerbread only knows me as Papi, my comedy alter ego, because we met on a comedy open mic night, and we share an affinity and a taste for dark humor. I may have Gingerbread Amy come back to do her, remember this is comedy, her suicide set, because what's funnier than trying to take your own life? But so they say. But anyway.
I would be honored. I would be honored.
So we'll have to, so that, you see, I'm full of teases. You know, I'm just full of teases. Next time, the suicide set. But so imagine my surprise. I'm not connected with Gingerbread for a while, And she texts me to say that she's here in Costa Rica at the Punta Arenas port, which is about an hour and a half away. And I'm so frustrated because if I had known in advance, then I would have been able to have set up to meet you. So I'm like, oh, too bad. And then she tells me, but I'm on the bus to Sarchi, which is a little town that happens to be just 10 minutes away. So don't you know we had a Papi Azucar Gingerbread Amy rendezvous about the sweetest thing you could imagine. Get it? Get it? Get it? Papi Azucar Gingerbread.
Nice.
And then Gingerbread Amy told me this story, which I wanted her to share with you because I'm always looking for inspiration, humor, and anything that has darkness in it needs a little light. So tell us a story, Gingerbread Amy.
Oh, Poppy. Okay, so we're going to talk about Jesus now. Thank you. Listen, I'm going to tell you the story of my dad, the one I told you when we did meet in person in Costa Rica. I mean, what a blessing. What a great day that was. I love thinking about it. So we talked about how our lives are vapors. I think everyone can agree. It's birth to death for everyone. And my dad's is gone. He was an amazing man. I think you met him, Poppy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone who will even snicker at my comedy deserves a place at my Last Supper table. Anyway, continue.
So my dad loved comedy because he loved truth. And so he was an amazing man. He was born in 1935 and he died in 2023, the day after his 88th birthday. And as you know, we were very, very close at the time of his death. And I don't know if you know this, but during his final years, we would often talk on banana phones just for laughs. I don't know if you can hear that swooshing. I'm in the basement. Well,
I wouldn't expect more from you than coming to me from the basement, Gingerbread Amy. But anyway.
Right. Anyway, so we would talk on banana phones just for laughs at the end of his life. And it was so fun. He loved the sea and he served as an officer in the U.S. Navy. In 2023, I took him on a cruise ship called the Summit. And it was the first time he'd been on a big ship since he served as an officer in the Navy. And he was beyond joyful. I mean, my dad was, the happiest old man on that ship. He just loved everything.
Maybe I'm sorry, I had to interrupt, but maybe he has different wartime flashbacks than other people. I mean, to me, let's go back to where all the good stuff happened. No, but I guess he had an overall love. Maybe that's why he chose the Navy. I mean, I'm just because he was there during wartime, right?
He wasn't in any of the wars. So it was peacetime.
Well, that's why he enjoys being on a ship. See, I'm glad I know. Anyway.
Right. It was peacetime and he just loved the sea and he loved the stars, and you could be out there, and he spent a lot of time just looking up at the heavens. And so being back on the ship with me after all those years, I mean, he felt like he was in heaven. I mean, it was just great. And so I booked another cruise for us on that same ship, hoping it would keep him alive. And he died 2 months before we were supposed to take that cruise. And he donated his body to the medical school at the University of Toledo. And I love that he was sporting a temporary tattoo of Wade on his body when he died. So at the medical school, they all got to enjoy a temporary tattoo of a gingerbread man. Anyway, 18 months after his death, I was in Los Angeles supporting a friend through a really hard thing. And I noticed that my dad's ship was in port in Los Angeles, the Summit. And I took a look at the itinerary, and it was an itinerary that my dad would have loved so much. And so even though his ashes weren't ready, I just decided to book the cruise for my dad and in honor of him. And then days after I booked the cruise, the medical school called me and said, your dad's ashes are ready. So it was really beautiful. I got to board the ship with my dad's ashes, and it was dad's ship, and he just like, I don't know, it was so incredible. And so the first week was pretty sad and lonely, but it was beautiful and meaningful. And I spread his ashes from the Pacific Ocean down past Costa Rica, through the Panama Canal, out to Cartagena, Colombia. And then we were supposed to go to Grand Cayman, but the weather was bad. So we went to Aruba, and then back into port in Fort Lauderdale, which was also so meaningful because that is where my dad boarded the summit for the very first time. So it was like a return, and it was so beautiful and so magical. And so many things happened on the 15-night cruise that were just, you know how things happen and you're like, it has to be.
What was the most cosmic thing that happened?
On the last night, I received a private rendition by the professional musicians on the ship. A trombone player came through the ship to us playing 76 trombones, which was my dad's favorite, and my dad played the trombone. And I don't know, I've just never heard of that happening on a cruise ship. So it was like,
and did they know, did the people on the cruise ship, because you had taken the cruise before, do they know about the connection to your dad and the trombone and that being his favorite song? It was just purely
none
cosmic.
of it. I had not mentioned it to anyone. I hadn't even thought of it really. I mean, I have my dad's trombone. I have it, but I had not mentioned that to anyone at all. And
so I'm going to have the link in the show notes, and I'll put it both on YouTube and Spotify and Apple. You know,
if you would link to my
censored
Instagram
and non-censored versions.
My Instagram is like my most current. It's my most. I don't know. I like it better than my actual website. My website needs to be updated, and I just
We'll put in your Instagram. So I'm assuming it's Gingerbread Amy something, or just Gingerbread Amy.
I think you follow, Papi. I think you follow.
Well, Gingerbread I do, but this is we're trying to lure in those unsuspecting people who came here.
Honestly, I didn't know you were still like recording. I thought you and I were just talking. Okay, so yes, you can find me on all the things, Papi. You can find me on Instagram at Gingerbread Amy. You can find me on Facebook, Gingerbread Amy. You can find me at gingerbreadamy.com. I love it.
Jazzy story. So here is a jazzy little story that I call The Ballad of Homeless Joe. To give you a little background, this story takes place in the mid-'80s when I was making pretty much my entire living as a street musician, singing at either the half-price ticket booth, Duffy Square in New York City, for people waiting in long lines to get half-price Broadway show tickets, and also just right there in the subway, right on the platform where people were waiting for their trains. It was less regulated then. Nobody really bothered you, as long as you weren't doing something crazy. And, I learned to stack my set with the songs people liked the most, and I was making up to $150 an hour. And this is in the 80s, when $150 an hour was a decent amount of money. And for some it still is, But, so there I was on the subway platform, and it's a business, and you have competition, and, well, my competition there was a guy just down the platform, clearly homeless, with a sign, please help me. And, it's just the thing that people are only so generous, and are they going to give to two people on the same subway platform? So that was why I went over and introduced myself, and we eventually did. We worked out a way, let me know when you're going to be here, so I won't be here at exactly the same time, and then we can both enjoy our income here on the subway platform. And that's how I met this guy. And all he called himself was Homeless Joe, never a last name. And he always started with, I am Homeless Joe, that's the only thing you'll ever call me. That he had a fear if people knew his name, they would hassle him. And I'm thinking, you're living under the subway. like in a box. I never saw his box, but, and you're worried about people knowing your name. It never quite made sense, but this is going to be important when we get to the shocking end of this story. So I was, getting friendly with Homeless Joe, and then he pulls out a sheath of paper, which is a segment of his book, the book he's writing. Of course you are. You're a homeless guy sitting on the subway station in New York City, on the subway platform rather, and of course you're writing a book. And this was before everybody had personal computers, and you really needed someone to type it up unless you could type it and had access to a computer, which were hard to come right down in the subway, So there are a lot of good Samaritans who were typing up pieces of his book. And so I did it to do a nice thing, to do a mitzvah, as we Jews call it. And to my great astonishment, I can't put this thing down. I mean, I have to stop typing to read it because it's so fascinating. It's so compelling. It's a cross between The Sopranos and Goodfellas. I mean, the guy supposedly grew up in this mob, in a mobbed up neighborhood, and he's telling all these crazy stories. And then he says how he became homeless because someone stole his tools at a point in where he couldn't buy new ones. And anyway, but the story was fascinating. And I gave him the part he needed me to type, and about 6 months later, he tells me he's found a publisher. Except the publisher won't agree to his conditions. Yes, Homeless Joe's condition was that he would only let someone publish his book if he retained artistic control of the final product. Beggars can't be choosers, as they say, but no, he was homeless or not, he had his artistic principles. But he kept going, and after about a year later, he tells me his book is actually being published. He found a publisher who agreed to his conditions, also agreeing that the author's name is just Homeless Joe, and the book is available in the local Barnes and Nobles. And I'm thinking, people just got to buy a few of these guys' books, and I won't have to give him handouts every time I see him, trying to be nice. So I happened to have a contact who was a producer at 60 Minutes. And I gave her this story, this Homeless Joe story. He's writing this book, and it's fascinating. There he is. And they were interested in doing a piece on him. Now, so I'm thinking, oh my God, I've changed this guy's life. I'm hooking him up with 60 Minutes. Now, who knows how far he's going to go. Certainly, he's going to get out of the subway. So I get in contact. I tell Homeless Joe, this is it. You're not going to be homeless anymore. You're going on 60 Minutes. And that's when he told me he couldn't. I said, you couldn't? What? You're artistic. What's going on? I was dumbfounded, and I was pretty upset about the money I've been giving him. God helps those who help themselves. And then he tells me the truth. The real reason he's homeless, he double-crossed the mob. That never got in the book, you see. He double-crossed the mob. And that's why he had to remain anonymous. Poor Homeless Joe died a few years ago, but I thought you'd enjoy this jazzy little story. Coda. We've come to the end of the show. I hope you've enjoyed it. It is almost like a podcast variety show, or maybe a circus. And for that reason, I'm going to use my coda, my kind of final thought, as a tribute to that great ringleader, Jerry Springer. Life's full of obstacles, bad choices, and some truly messed up people. But let's be real. None of that means squat if you've got the guts to step up and take control. The world can be a dumpster fire, but here's the thing. You're the one holding the extinguisher. So if you want an extraordinary life, quit waiting for permission. The universe doesn't hand out golden tickets. It hands out opportunities disguised as hard work, failure, and risk. The people who make it are the ones who jump in head first, face the fire, and refuse to back down when it gets hot. Remember, it's never too late to turn things around. I'm 65 and still breaking the rules and proving people wrong every damn day, and you can too. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. And remember, friends, as I always say, success is doing what other people can't do, won't do, or are just too chicken shit to do.
Yeah.
See you next time. Ciao, baby. Or Vida Mai.